The moon rises and a nocturnal symphony begins, shutting out all the noise of frivolity. From the depths of the oblivion, Blvd Hvnny has arrived with a moody yet massive repertoire for those found sometimes thrashing and sometimes sighing. Blvd Hvnny, if you could be the band playing in the background of any cinematic universe, which one would it be?
Guys, I'm gonna be so gracious, and I'm gonna open the floor to any of you because I'd be very curious to hear what your interpretation would be, or what your perfect scene would be. Maybe I shouldn't think about it too hard, but if anybody feels it, do it.
I don't know, maybe if you just take one of our jams and put it over the scene of Phantom of the Opera or something like that.
Wow. Wow, you went there, Ryan.
I did go there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's an interesting one, Ryan, dude. That's an interesting one.
I think that the music would be absolutely amazing over a silent movie type feel, with that old Charlie Chaplin type look.
Yeah.
With static movements, black and white, and let the music really be the script of the cinematic universe. That would be awesome.
That would be great, man. I love that. Love that. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something like Tim Burton kind of dark nation of sorts, a dystopian kind of. Yeah, it's a good question.
I was picturing a Scarface adjacent Quentin Tarantino effort.
Nice. I love that.
That's kind of spot on.
Yeah.
Well done. You want to join the band?
To be honest, I mean, any room that you guys walk into becomes a room of legends. I need to know what the band rehearsal dynamics are like.
You know what? Surprisingly, although not so surprisingly, it's quite chilled. I think we really, I really put a good team together here of guys, because not only are they ridiculously talented, but they're also lovely to work with and open. And so it's usually excitement. We don't rehearse that much, but when we do, it's really cool. We get really productive, and we turn our little time that we do jam together into explosions of greatness. I think a lot of the stuff is pretty predetermined. Also, a lot of the later songs that we've recorded has a lot of their inputs with regards to their flavor, to rhythms and melodies and things like that, feel. So it's quite, for me, it's quite exciting going into a rehearsal with him.
He really enjoys going to band practice. He's excited for it, and I'm terrified I'm going to mess up. So the shows are awesome. You guys will know one day. You'll know the Cito stare, and then
hey man,
you'll understand.
Oh wow, this is becoming therapy. I wasn't expecting this. Well, okay, let's do it, man.
We need to break down that Cito stare. I feel like we need to go deeper into that there. But when you mentioned that, you got the guys together, you made me think of in a movie where there's some villain that comes through, and then government has to come together and put together this special task team or whatever, and everyone's file and shit comes up. That's what you made me think of. And it's just incredible. How did you actually get this whole project together? And what criteria were you actually using, when it came to finding, was Ryan, the rest of the guys?
Oh man, it's actually such a long story, but it's a cool story because what it started out with and what it ended up as has been my vision, but also a huge surprise for me. And so Blvd Hvnny was going to be a solo project, just something on the side for me to express my darker, indulgent, dark side. The kind of music that I love to dance to on a good old gothic alternative or industrial dance floor. The kind of music that for me is the most exciting and interesting in, sort of bringing in electronica, but also still having the musicality and the rock to it. So it was going to be mostly programming. And I had a couple of guys in the beginning that I worked with under the Cito label. So it was going to be like a Cito. That was my brand, you know. And that involved Waldo, Luke Alexander on violin, and Andre van Rensburg on classical guitar. And to try and get him on board with my project took some coaxing. He wasn't interested in commercial music or doing anything conventional. So I had to send him some demos to see if he'd be keen to join the project. And he did. And we recorded a couple of songs. Before it was called Blvd Hvnny under Cito, we released one song called Aria, which I released with a video that had Waldo and Andre on it. Andre, funny enough, edited it, and that was the first video that Blvd Hvnny directed before he went on to do the others like Nocturne and Joaquin. And so that following year, after checking out how Aria was doing video-wise, because I did it completely independently through TuneCore, I think it was. I started checking out how I was doing on iTunes and on Spotify, and I realized that I was lost amongst 25 other Citos from around the world. Lots of hip hop artists, lots of Latin artists, different kinds of music, and it was like in Spotify, if you don't have enough of an artist profile, you just get mixed up. So then I decided, no, I always wanted to have a band with this project. I didn't want it to be a solo thing so much because I don't want people to think about me trying to sell this. I want it to be like its own kind of entity, especially with the kind of music that I wanted to do. It wasn't resonating with the usual sort of solo artist stamp it comes with, if that makes any sense. And then, so while I was thinking of names and recording other songs, Nocturne was the next one that I was going to release, and I wanted to give it a fresh, new everything. I launched Blvd Hvnny, and it was still kind of like a solo project. Waldo and Andre weren't involved with that. At the same time, while I was getting the sort of solo thing out the way, I started to recruit and start to play live a couple of these tracks. And I called on Warren to join me. We did like a bit of a duo thing. So he would accompany me on piano or keys, and then I would handle sort of guitar. And then I scouted for old Ryan on drums. I got him to join, and Waldo came back in, and I was battling with guitar and keys in general. Let me call in my good old, faithful, like-minded, cool as fuck partner in crime, fellow guitarist Martin Rocka, to join the project. That's how I eventually formed the band Blvd Hvnny. And because it started electronically based with mostly programming beats, I was quite adamant. That's where that steer comes in. To play the programmed bass and beats acoustically, but still with those patterns. So it's like a different approach to the writing of the tunes, like sequencing and different kind of sort of approach to drums and all of that, So a lot of the songs, and I take my hat off to Ryan for listening to me, because I know how difficult drummers can be. When they tell you that's not how we play it, that's not how you play it though, that's not how drummers would play it. Ryan he just stepped up to the plate and was like, cool, let's try it. I think Ryan, besides this ridiculous skill, he's so open and cool, and he's obviously, he plays hip hop, he plays, metal, he plays all kinds of styles. So it's really cool having somebody like that behind the drums, and still bring his personality. He's not just some drum sample machine. He's got his own feel, and it's quite cool. I'm rambling. I've just gone on this whole
Thanks, man.
long
Keep
thing.
going, bro. No, don't stop there.
I know you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
But now Warren, speaking of that lovely laugh that I'm hearing in the background, Warren, he is a legend of his own. Coming from Plum, I actually know Warren from 4 8-legged groove machines. So I don't know, Meagan and Nasiphi, if you know Plum or even eight-legged groove machine for that matter. But yeah, it was like mid-90s, early 90s, you know. And so I knew Warren from before then. Like, he was in a band called Instant Karma.
Yeah.
Who beat my previous band. We're Moonchild at a Battle of the Bands hosted by Voice of Wits at Wings Beat Bar in Braamfontein. And that's where I met Warren the first time. But we've obviously gone our own paths, you know, crossing plenty times in different scenarios, different festivals, different situations. And I consider him my brother from like way back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Waldo is he's a secret weapon. He is this mad genius violinist, virtuoso that will play for the Philharmonic, can pitch to ear, can play anything without listening to it for the first time or rehearsing it. He'll just like slot in and knows exactly what to play. He's just one of those wunderkinds that happens to be my friend. So Waldo's role in the band is to, you know, he has that sort of classical training like in the back pocket, but he never really has to use it because he fulfills more of a sort of sonic soundscape kind of role. So lots of drones and pads and psychedelic, you know, affected sounds, you know.
I call it whale noises.
Whale noises.
Proper.
Yeah, he's
proper
whale noises. Yeah, it's but yeah. Besides, I mean, he's just ridiculous, and it's really cool to have in a sort of rock, electro, alternative kind of sphere, because it really makes things sound fresh and unpredictable and fluid and dramatic. You know, there's a lot of cinematic sort of, which is perfect for Blvd Hvnny, you know. Going back to Waz on bass, I feel for him the most because creating a lot of these bass lines and a lot of the songs that I write are bass line driven.
Yeah.
That was my first instrument. And I'm always thinking in bass lines. And I feel for Warren because sometimes the keys are just, they're not conventional or, you know, the right places for the typical sort of hand movements and patterns on a bass, you know, playing bass guitar.
That's all true.
But that's not my problem. So
whenever I'm working something out, it's like, what shouldn't I do? And it'll probably be right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you just get me. You just know. It's like, it's not really a predictable sort of scale or melody or something. It's like, it's usually a semitone up from where you or down
where you want to go,
from where it's supposed to be, you know?
Yeah.
So hats off to Waz there, because it's also just lovely to work with and open, and he just does it, you know. Fuck, I've got like kick-ass bass guitarist who gets me, and I don't have to worry about that. I haven't really spoken too much about Martin Rocka, except that he's just a demon on the guitar. You know, I think it's evident that I love performing with him. So it's nice to have him in the project. He's got a nice sort of alternative background as well. And his knowledge of the great bands and music is vast. And yeah, it's just fun to have him in any of my bands.
Listen, man, we definitely encourage, you know, rambling. It's nothing bad at all. It's just you're getting as much insights as you possibly can. My initial follow-up to that question was basically going to be to ask the rest of the guys, you know, what it is that sort of convinced them to, you know, just the other side of the coin, you know, when when you approached them and such, you know, what it is that made them sort of want to go on there. But I can obviously just imagine it must have been just the dashing good looks. But besides that, what I want to focus on here is
I'm so their type, man. I'm so their type.
You were showering like just a whole lot of praise, you know, on the guys. You've been working with them for a while now. I want to find out from the rest of you guys, obviously Ryan, Waldo, Warren as well, you know, what it is that you guys actually enjoy. I ask this often, but what it is that you guys enjoy about working with Cito.
Word. I'll start off with the like the feeling of what it was to be asked to jam with these guys. Ask any musician in SA if they want to jam with Cito, Martin Rocka, and like a dude on violin and some crazy bassist, you know. You're gonna be stoked. Yeah. It was cool. It's such a rad experience. I think we've done so many different things that I haven't done with other bands, you know, music videos, just the music is different. It's really cool. And I think that's part of it, is that it's something that I think lots of us don't really do in other bands, you know. It's a lot of rock, there's a lot of stuff going around, but there's not a lot of this, and it's wicked to be a part of. And then the people involved in it are insane. Obviously Cito, one of the best vocalists out there, I gotta say, you know. Just an amazing guy. I would probably, you know, I knew him years ago as well, so I'd probably say the guy you look up to, you know, definite rock star, him and Martin Rocka there, obviously. Just solid dudes, very knowledgeable. They know what they're doing with music. They're enjoying it while they do it. Yeah, it's just a jam, and such nice peeps to do it with. And then, having a violin in the band, you know, it's like everyone's dream to be in a rock band or anything and play with an orchestra. So, it's killer. And it's so much fun doing all the things that we do. The events, the music videos. It's really cool. It's creepy, but it's dope. And I've never, ever in my life had to wear makeup before like Wednesday 2 weeks ago. So that's a new experience as well. It's cool. Just killer musicians, hey, top of the range. So it's really cool to be a part of it.
Nice one, brother. Nice one. Well said. Waldo, your side, bro?
Well, you know, for starters, just to echo what Ryan's been saying, you know, when you get approached by somebody like Cito, you know, you're an idiot if you're going to say no. I mean, Cito is probably one of the most valuable assets that South African music has, and, you know, for very, very good reason. Talent and gift and ability aside, the man is you know, the ultimate gentleman. You know, I hate him because of his hair. I wish I had hair like his. Just kidding.
You do, man. You do.
I don't.
You do on your chin.
On my chin. Yeah, sure. Thanks. Look, you know, for me with Blvd Hvnny, luckily enough, I'd been, you know, I'd started working with Cito on a couple of other projects, and Cito, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Prior
to Blvd Hvnny actually being formed, you know, you and Andre van Rensburg and I, who is formerly of Battery 9, the one song Aria that we did, I think it was under the name Cito.
Yeah.
So I was quite fortunate in that way, because I had my foot in the door a whole lot sooner than everybody else did. At some point, Cito spoke to me about, you know, this goth project, and I said to him, sign me up, because, you know, I love that style of music. You know, I've been listening to bands like Rosetta Stone and Sisters of Mercy and some of the hardest stuff, you know, like Goth Minister and Sero for many, many years. So I'm a massive fan of that style of music. It's, you know, it lends itself to, you know, well, the theatre surrounding it it's fantastic. And musically, you know, for me, with my musical background, which is quite diverse, obviously it's sort of grounded in a classical foundation, but, you know, just because of the violin and the way that I use it, you know, in the electric sense, a 5-string violin with a rack of pedals that's 5 times the size of Martin Rocka's. You know, it just allows me so much space. The scope available to me as a musician in terms of what I can do and, well, how I can contribute to the music. You know, which bits I'll focus on will there be. Everything can range from, you know, Cito said, it can be textural, it can be drones. I can double up with Martin on guitar parts. I can try and steal Warren's bass lines occasionally. You know, I have a tremendous amount of possibility in terms of what I'm able to do in this music, and the songs are just fantastic. That's my little contribution. Obviously, love you guys so much. So, you know,
same, I mean,
yeah,
big time.
Not very little there, Waldo, bro. I feel like you're underplaying it. So you're like, this is my little contribution. The hell no, dude. You know, it's a very massive impact. But Warren, let us in on your sort of perspective, man.
Yeah. Thanks, man. So for me, I'm I'm an honest, firm believer that every thought and action that we take leads us to the very moment we're sitting in. And I was lucky enough to be asked to do a Wonderboom tour in 2018 to fill in for Wade. And we were sitting in, I think it was Hermanus, and we had just finished sound check, and Cito came up to me and he said, "Hey, man, do you want to listen to some of my solo project and tell me what you think?" And we were sitting outside and I was looking at the ocean and the sun was going down, and he put his headphones on my head. And I think it was Antibiotic that I heard for the very first time. That was the first Blvd Hvnny song I heard. And oh my God, I was blown away. I was like, I have to be part of this somehow, in some way. The music just touched me. And there was a couple of tracks, I think Nocturnal may have been the other one. But this is the music that I'd grown up with, you know, walking around the neighborhood, dressed in black and black fingernails and you know, Cure posters all over my wall and Bauhaus. And it's everything that I listened to had built up to that very moment sitting there in that December. And when I heard it, I don't know if it was an insight or an epiphany or something happened, and a feeling just arose inside of me that I might be part of this project. And when it literally became a reality, it was just, firstly, totally grateful and humble to the experience, because as Cito said, first it started off with a couple of shows of me on keys and Cito on guitar and vocals. And the more layers of musicians that came in, it just, everything clicked together so well. Like playing bass with Ryan, it's just something with the bass player when he plays with the drummer that's really on and in the pocket. It's just, you just sit on that drummer and you don't move. And because, as Cito said, the songs are quite a lot bass driven. It's not like slappy funky or slap, or if I ever want to hurt Cito's and get the Cito stare, I just have to slap.
Told you, bro.
But you know, like playing with Ryan and just sitting and making this groove, like this foundation for everybody to paint. Basically, I see Ryan and myself as like the concrete layer, and we just keep it solid. And we've got these amazing artists of painters and poets and, you know, this whole manifestation of artists just creating this thing called Blvd Hvnny on top of it. And to be part of that, for me is like, I often say to my wife, like, this is the best band I've ever played in.
Wow.
You know, because, and I truly think it is. My fingers just go where they just go where they're supposed to go, because I've been listening to this music.
Thank God.
For so long.
Thanks for that.
And to top it off, Cito's lyrics are just something to bow down to, man. Like when you actually pen them and you look at them and you read them, aside from the music, it's complete poetry. And it's something that happens on the side that sometimes people don't often catch a part of, but when you take it apart, it's mesmerizing. So to be part of that with Martin Rocka on guitar as well, you know, we sit and we talk history of bands and music that we listen to, all the way to like Stiff Little Fingers, to Anti-Nowhere League, to the Crass, to bands that a lot of people wouldn't know in the punk scene, and we can just relate on that level. So there's something that I connect with everybody in the band, and Waldo is just the magician in the band. He just makes everything. He's the glue. He's the psychedelic glue. And yeah, I'm just very humble and grateful to be part of this project, and absolutely love to drive in it.
Warren, that was very spiritual, dude. Very spiritual indeed, man. Yeah. Very touching.
It was so beautiful. Thank you, was.
Yeah.
I'd love to know the reason why you chose Antibiotic as the debut track to launch this project.
You know, it's so funny because I was pulling my hair out to speak to you about the songwriting process, because a big component of say about half of the Blvd Hvnny songs is songwriting partnership with Aaron. I'll tell you all about that process. But going back to Antibiotic was one of the first sort of solo songs that I had written. It's actually quite old, And part of my sort of mission as a project was I had so many song ideas that were just sitting on the back burner, and I think out of, I suppose, impurity or, vulnerable taking precedent, priority, I kept putting these songs in the back burner. And so by the time Antibiotic was finished, I had made that whole discovery of Cito being another name out there, and having to birth a brand new name that nobody's going to have, that nobody's going to spell like, so although there are a few blood honeys out there, they're not spelled like this. So during that whole process, I also switched over from TuneCore to DistroKid. I started working with a very good friend of mine, Craigie Dodds, phenomenal producer. And he was guiding me nocturne. I would send him songs. He's a kick-ass producer that I went to school with, headed up a project called Egyptian Nursery in the 90s. And he ended up producing and doing lots of remixes for a lot of the bands in the 90s. He moved to the UK. And he started working with big artists like Sugar Babes and Massive Attack. And a lot of the stuff that we don't even hear, but is so good. It's quite alternative. And anyway, I would send him demos over the years. And when I sent him Nocturne, he responded straight away. He's like, just add a sort of mid-8 section, and started giving me production tips. But so he convinced me to go into DistroKid and how I should distribute my music. And this is before I got the band together. And during that transition, I didn't want to sacrifice Nocturne. It fucked up, especially with the whole changeover and starting a new thing. So I thought Antibiotic was ready. It happened to be ready at that time. And I thought, let me just release it, just take a chance and see how it goes. And it was a soft release. I didn't make a big thing out of it. I didn't do a whole bad thing. I just wanted to get something onto Spotify, onto iTunes, get my profile going, so that when I release Nocturne, that would be the first song you hear, if that makes any sense. So much effort goes into every single release going forward that at that time, and I kind of knew it, I just wanted to get my profile going with a song on the system, so that when I release future songs, I really start building up my catalog that way. And if you're looking for the meaning behind the song, going more inward, a lot of it is reflection. So Antibiotic, written reflection to your past relationship, quite sort of toxic on many levels. And yeah, it's kind of suggesting that it's not like love is always the right kind of drug. That's why I released Antibiotic.
To sort of follow up, on that, there's so many follow-ups like I can think of. It's actually wild because you guys are just you're able to express yourself so well. I had another question to follow up with, but then you said something else about Antibiotic and how, it was about, you were hinting on like a past sort of like toxic relationship type thing. And obviously when it comes to music, it's a really like personal thing, right?
Yeah.
And as a musician, it's sort of like you have to release this at the end of the day. How do you get yourself to a point where you're so comfortable, that you're able to talk about such things, or maybe write about things that are inspired by maybe a toxic relationship, and be like, well, I'm willing to actually share this with other people, people that I don't really know, listen to it. You're opening yourself up to maybe other people judging you and whatnot. So how do you get that comfortable, man, to write something like this and then release it to the world?
Oh man, you're asking all the right questions. It's beautiful. I wish I didn't ramble on so much, so that I could hear more of your questions, because it's something that you don't really hear in interviews. So thank you. I think the secret to Blood Honey and the magic that it has is that it's sort of vulnerable. A lot of the songs are very personal and very sort of revealing. And like, I never want Blood Honey to be a facade, even though a lot of the songs are quite sort of fantastical and out there. I want to go there. I want to go to those dark places. I want to give it a bit of a platform. I want to feel uncomfortable releasing certain songs. It's what people sort of digest and they personalize, and there's so much music out there about typical stuff. I just want to really sort of go there, be vulnerable, feel my deepest, darkest self, and try to do it as beautifully as possible.
You mentioned before Erin Eldon.
Yes.
What's the co-writing process, considering she's based in LA?
So my former business partner, Colette Dawson, we had a business together, a sort of entertainment business, and she did a lot of good work for me in getting me connected with people. And she told me about Erin Alden. She connected me with her. And since about sort of 2014, we would have these Skype sessions once a week. We just went in cold, not knowing each other. She came up with the first chord sequence, and then we started getting into sort of lyric writing. And she's been such a blessing in my life. And it's been so fun. It's like having this sort of virtual songwriting partner that you haven't met physically. And you just meet up once a week. I came up with some really cool things up until now. She co-wrote Joaquin with me. She co-wrote Aria, which is now Symphony. Yeah, that's how we did it via Skype.
Just, something I want to touch on here, guys, as well. Just basically from what I'm hearing Cito talk about here as well, you tend to go back, so you mentioned earlier, obviously, about Eight-Legged Machine and such, and you mentioned early 90s, mid 90s. This is something that I'm assuming, right? So please don't kill me, but I'm assuming that this might be something that might be more relevant to maybe Waldo was and maybe Cito. But Ryan, if you have any input here, please also just jump in. So my question basically is something that often comes up as well, and I feel like it's relevant right now, considering that we're talking to you guys. So if you guys had to maybe compare the scene from like back then in the early 90s, mid 90s to now, would you say as musicians you're in a better place, where you're in a better position to thrive as a musician in 2022, or would you say that maybe musicians were better positioned maybe in like the early 90s?
So for me, I've often spoken about it that there's a period between 1994 to about 2001 that was kind of undocumented because there was no YouTube, there was no digital platform, there was no social media. And that was where, for me, I don't know if it was just because I was in it and it was happening, I was happening around it was happening around me. But it's when there were bands in South Africa that moved completely away from the cover scene. And they were starting to produce proper original when I say proper, like original South African music that we had faith and belief in it. We thought this was felt like a revolution was brewing in 1996. There was these little mini festivals that were being put on, and there was no cover bands. It was just all original bands like B-World, Blue Chameleon, Sugar Drive, Plum, Eight-Legged Groove Machine / Nude Girls, Vorneboom. This is when it was happening for me. It was something that was brewing gently, like a boiling water on a stove, and it slowly started boiling over. And because it was so new, there were people trying to assist, in terms of putting events together. And it was new to everybody. Radio DJs, right to recording studios. And I think that's where the penny dropped that we can actually do this as musicians in a country, and to express our artistic belief and ways and what we're inspired by. And we've got a platform to actually present this now. And if I had to compare that to where everything is now everything is kind of caught up in terms of thinking like events and managers and places to play. And it's now, there's almost no excuse that the music has to be on a compatible level with the rest of the world. Back then it was almost like, and it used to grate me, like a South African band would be played on the radio, and the DJ would always say, and that's South African artist so and so, or you would hear people comment and say, not bad for a South African band. And now it's changed. It's just we all part of the same pool, and it's all part of the same universe of collectiveness. And I think now the opportunities with the platforms that music is distributed on, it's just endless, and it's so big. As Cito was saying, like it's very possible to get lost in a world, in a digital landscape, just by having the same name as another artist. It's quite overwhelming, but at the same time, we've got all the tools and we have all the mechanics to actually do this and make it real. That's from quite a technical point of view.
That's great.
Thanks.
Not bad for a South African band. That's super disrespectful right there. Honestly, the nerve. Waldo, what's your take on it, man?
Oh, okay. Well, let me just quickly steel myself here. There are many sides to this to potentially look at. Warren's covered one of the a couple of the most important sides. I'm somewhat reluctant to go to the slightly more dangerous part of it, but I think I'll take the plunge. Just to be absolutely clear, this is just from my personal perspective in terms of my life and my growth and development as a South African and as a musician. That period of the mid-90s. So I matriculated in 95. So I was one of the guys I was always in the audience. I wasn't lucky enough yet to be able to play with bands. That came later. So in 99, I moved down to Cape Town to complete my BMus degree at UCT. I noticed when I came back to Joburg the first time in April of that year, that's when venues started shutting down very, very rapidly. It's one of these subjects that you hear people moaning about, and that we and they have been moaning about for several years now, is the lack of platforms to showcase and perform and expose yourself. But with the sort of it was in some ways gradual and in other ways very, very, very quick, with this sort of disappearance of venues and platforms. What I noticed above that was what I felt is that prior to the digital age, if you wanted to go out on any given night of the week, you would get the Star newspaper and you would get the Tonight section, and there would always be a gig guide in it. I think it was always on a Thursday or something like that. So you check, who's playing where, and that would kind of be your, you'd form your decision around that. I felt that around about that time, this is now, going into the early 2000s, by the mid-noughties, I felt that there was quite a severe decline in the standards that South African audiences came to expect. The bands who were playing in the mid-90s, they had to play to quite a discerning audience in a way. I felt that people were a little more clued up, discerning, and perhaps also more demanding, in a knowledgeable way, not just in being a jerk or not bad for a South African band, but people knew what to expect in terms of standards and quality. I just feel that has kind of dwindled, but that's just from my perspective. For myself, my entry into the sort of the more professional hardcore realm of music, we landed a gig with William Kentridge and the Handspring Puppet Company and South African composer Kevin Boland. So, these are three massive heavyweights in terms of the new music and the fine art scene. So my career took off, from that kind of, that hardcore, current, classical kind of scene. And what the massive opportunity that this afforded me was the fact that I was able to tour internationally to be exposed to the international platform, to understand the expectations and what's required, and then bring that back, try to bring that back here. Yeah, I mean, all of the guys in Blvd Hvnny, well, they've seen Waldo on a bad day when it comes to expectations. The experiences that I've had, in that music / fine arts multimedia collaborative environment, the experiences that I've been able to have shown me that nothing will suffice short of excellence. When you get on stage, you really, really have to perform. And also when you rehearse, you need to bring your A game for every possible second. So I see within unfortunately more in the classical community that people are a little bit reluctant, and well, I suppose this is where I said it would get dangerous. I'll just be brave and say people have become very, very complacent and very comfortable, because we're also faced with not only with small audiences, but with audiences who are not informed, be it on a level, a basic level of exposure and education, or people who just don't know any better. I still feel that although through the age of the internet and the technological advances, the world has been brought closer together. In some way, I feel that we've also just, at the same time, quite distant. Anyhow, that's me. I'm going to stop talking now. Waffle.
Wow, man.
Very well said, man. You broke it down really well, dude. You really broke it down well. And I wonder if there's any correlation between, as you're saying, people are getting complacent and such. It does sort of seem like a lot of South African, or there were a lot more South African bands that sort of made it internationally back then than there are maybe now. I wonder if there's any correlation, to that there. And also, I wonder if
I'm sure there isn't.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll just to interrupt quickly, and then I'll keep quiet.
No, please continue.
Let's just be 100% clear on this. This is not just a South African phenomenon. It's a global thing. This is happening all over the world. It just happens in different ways. But we're not we're not special and isolated when it comes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, sorry for interrupting.
No, it's all good. I also just wonder if there's any correlation between that there and the fact that now maybe, the shift in genres being at the forefront. Like you'll find that maybe back in the 90s, the biggest genre would have probably been like rock or alternative, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Whereas now you find there was also a period where you found that EDM was like at the forefront. That was like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And then now you'll find that maybe it's more like, hip hop and that sort of vibe there. I wonder, it's something to think about as well. But Ryan, bro, we hadn't gotten your point. Is there anything that you'd like to sort of, share in terms of comparing, the scene back then and the scene right now on just, your perspective?
Sure. I can't say much about being in the scene. Just kind of, hearing it, I guess, kind of growing up in the scene more so.
You were born in the 90s.
Yeah, but that's right, dude. I don't remember like 5 years of the 90s. So, yeah, I think it's one of those things, you said it, things change as they go, genres, types. Waldo said it there nicely as well. Definitely, I think compared to then, yeah, definitely stuff's easier to get out and share, and you can collaborate with people all over the world. You can send your music to someone overseas that, produces and mixes and masters for people like Dua Lipa and that kind of thing. And it's relatively easy. It's not that expensive. You can upload your music for free on certain things, So in that sense, the scene's definitely changed into what it was. It used to be, and especially I think when I was just coming out of school, it was live shows. That's all we wanted to do, was go see a band. I'm sure I'd listen to them here and there, but it was about seeing them and experiencing it with your homies. And I do think that that's changed a little now. I think lots of people are eager to, stream kind of thing. I think about if, I had to go watch one of my favorite bands when I was younger, I'd go watch every single one of their shows on their tour while they were here. I think people are more content to see one or two of their shows and be like, yeah, I was there, I experienced it. So I just think in that kind of sense, things change.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everyone's keeping up with the music in that kind of sense. Things also have a way of coming back around. So we're hearing a lot of different things. There's a lot of hip hop coming up, that's sounding like original hip hop and newer hip hop that we've never heard of. Rock has kind of been stable and growing and that kind of thing. And there will always be people that are just all about rock and roll. So, and even that changes, with some of my students for lessons and stuff like that, they'll come in and say like these heavy metal bands. And if I think what, heavy metal started as, it's like AC/DC, Metallica, compared to what's out there now, I think even by a genre, things just change and shift. So yeah, I think it is what it is now. But I think there's still a following. There's definitely, people are keen to go out and watch the bands that they can, especially, if you haven't seen a band in a while or if they scarcely play. And I think that's a cool thing that I think, Cito and Brad and them they got the hook for this kind of thing as well. It's about nice content that people can have with them always. It's not just that band that you have around your wrist to go watch a show for 40 to an hour minutes,
Yeah, and I wonder if, the fact that, when you spoke about shows there, I'm just wondering if some of the novelty is lost when it comes to live shows because of the internet and bands being so like easily accessible in a way. It's not the same watching a band on YouTube, obviously, and watching them live, but at the same time, it's sort of like, if you want to find something related to a band, you can literally just dial up the internet and find something on them. But just quickly passing on to Cito, brother.
Yeah, look, I think we've had, like simultaneously we've degenerated, but also evolved, and that's just how music works. Especially commercial music and production-wise, we're like on such an amazing level just because of progress of technology and how people are consuming music plays a big role in how people are writing music. And because everything's been done, music has got to change all the time. And every now and then we have that sort of retro comeback. But yeah, with regards to live and production, it's quite tough competing your live show at a club or whatever to what's out there internet-wise. But nothing beats a live performance if it's done right, especially when you have great players and and you actually bring it, you bring it to the stage in all aspects. Connection with the crowd is a big thing for me. It always has been. And to be able to do something like that with Blvd Hvnny is quite cool and fresh for me. It's something that you don't know is going to work because you feel that you're so sort of insular and in your own kind of studio and within your own head, but to bring it onto a live platform. And that's why I put this magic band together, because they all bring it and they help realize. And a lot of the sort of recent recordings have got them on it. I want Blvd Hvnny to be more of a collective. I suppose it kind of started that way with songwriting, but I don't want to sort of rely on studio production. There must be a great sort of performance to Blvd Hvnny's future.
Very, very well said there, brother. I want to pass on a quick comment before I pass on to Meagan. I just want to say, firstly, shout out to Colette Dawson because Cito, you mentioned her and you've had an interview with her in the past. Really amazing lady. And also, cool. Yeah, she's brilliant. And one more interesting fact as well on something that I think it was Waldo said. I'm pretty much in the same train as Ryan, or a similar train as Ryan, because when Waldo matriculated in 1995, that was just a year before I was born. So this is such a privilege. It's a privilege for me to learn. Yeah, man. Like it's a privilege for me to just learn about, the differences between the scenes and stuff and how things worked back then and stuff. It's a gold mine. So thank you guys for actually, sharing all this knowledge and stuff. That's what I wanted to say.
Ooh, it's a pleasure.
Right, man.
Just to sort of close out on our discussion about live music, what would you like to see in this new era of live music?
So in this new era of live music, I suppose I would like to see some kind of support. It's so difficult, especially in whatever city or country you're in, but to rely on government, like Department of Arts and all that kind of thing, to expect them to contribute in any way, because music is such a personal thing. And, some places have got it right, others don't. Obviously, where the support happens, there's a hub, there's a scene, and in many ways, we're quite disjointed in South Africa. I think, if you think back, and I'm speaking especially now, if you think back to the 90s, when all we really had was live venues and then our own sort of personal spaces to listen to music. It's now you can listen to it everywhere. So we're kind of spread out all over the place. And to have a scene like we used to have in the 90s again, like Rocky Street. But when I was young, when I was in high school, I would sneak out, hitchhike to like Rocky Street or the town, and you'd see these places happening. It would just be one venue. It would be like multiple venues, in one street kind of a thing. And, that is kind of hard to find now. The more we expand, the more they build up, all the properties, and everybody's all spread out, also in their own spaces, and, listening to music. It's hard to get a concentrated, cool sort of scene. And you look at a place like South Africa, the multiple genres that we have, the potential, what could be done if there is a bit of support from governments, maybe cool, some kind of injection into the sort of live venue scene, theaters. There's obviously got to be return for it. I don't know. I think at this stage, there's so many things happening at the same time. I don't want to bring up the sort of cliche of the pandemic, but I think that really made an impact on the scene. Negatively, obviously, lots of businesses closed down, venues closed down. The venues that are open, have managed to sort of weather the storm in that sense. But people are, I think they discovered the pleasure of not having to go out in many ways. So yeah, there's a lot of things to contend with. I don't want to complain. I think as an artist, if you've got something special and good, and you have your occasional gig, they don't have to be that many. I mean, obviously it helps because you build up a scene and you build up a chemistry performing live. But if what you're offering is so fresh and cool, the people will come to those gigs. And it's just about having the right venues. We've got some really cool venues that have opened up recently around South Africa. Joburg, Sonage is quite cool. They're like completely catered to the live experience, and production obviously plays a big role. That's usually the thing that we got to deal with, is we work within our production capabilities when we tour, when we play at different venues. And yeah, if you can't win them over with production, your music better be very fucking good. So, I think a lot of the onus is on the artist, but it's always has been, and now it's even more so, if that makes any sense.
It most certainly does, man. Very well explained. Ryan, any inputs on your end on Meek's question?
Yeah, I'd say, I think any musician looks forward to what comes next or what's going to happen. And I think one of the big things that all of us want to happen is for shows to become a big thing again. I think, like all musicians, we kind of want shows to become a thing again, live shows, performances, even if just having support from other people or coming to support other bands, that kind of thing. Doesn't always have to be the biggest band that you have to go watch, I'll get a lot of boos, but I think musicians also got a bit lazy, I think lots of people feel like they should be on the big stage or something like that. And I don't mean in a sense that, people don't have to earn something, or they can just do it in a sense, if it happens, it happens. I think the love for it kind of got a bit mixed up in that as well. I think lots of people are keen to play the big shows or play with the big bands, just in my experience with other bands. And sometimes I think the point is missed, that it should just be enjoyed and have a good time. And if it's not your jam, then either stick around for the next one or, move on to the next. I think looking forward, the coolest thing to see would just be like a lot more again, camaraderie between bands, support, venues doing the same, and bands to those venues. There's a lot of venues that did a lot of bands a lot of good, and things happen. But yeah, I think, there's still definitely a lot of places to play. People still doing tours, so it's a real thing. But yeah, I think maybe a mixture between all that's going on the internet and social media. I think a good mixture between that and a live show, if you get the balance right, I think that's probably the coolest thing to look forward to. Or combining them, 360 shows, go watch your favorite bands overseas. Yeah, from your couch, I guess.
That was very beautiful, man. Both of you absolutely killed, that answer. And I feel like there's a lot of insights in there for the listener as well. Something that you said there, Cito, bro, right in the beginning when you were talking about, how you got the guys together and such. I feel like a very important point there would be to look at what you sort of described, you guys being, which is a dark alternative collective. But then I look at that and then I look at your guys' name. What's the correlation? Is there any? I mean, honey. When I think of honey, I don't automatically think dark and alternative. I rather think sweet and just chilled. So what's the link between those two? And in actual fact, is there any story behind the name?
So the story about Blood Honey is I've got this electrical box outside our house that swarm of bees. There'd be a swarm of bees that would make itself a hive in there. Very first time we got it, we were like, well, it's like in the front garden. It's away from the dogs. It's away from us. Maybe we can coexist, And then my neighbors started complaining they got kids. So I got a bee expert. What do you call them? Bee keeper. To come around and remove the hive. And when he did the first removal, my wife is her appreciation of all life is huge. So she was quite disappointed that we were going to be removing the hive, but that there would be a few bees that would die in the process. But we had to do it. So unfortunately, there were a couple of bees that casualties in the process because they removed the queen and the swarm follows. But in that process, some of them get stuck behind, so confused that they eventually just fly away and die. So this beekeeper, after he had removed the swarm, he had given me honey that was left over, which was this amazing raw honey. And it's like, in its complete sort of rawest form. So that kind of stuck with me because it kind of, in many ways, says so much in the name. My passion for all life, but how it's under threat and how we need the bees just to keep the whole ecosystem going. It kind of just stuck with me, and just finding different ways to spell it. So it's a kind of play on words like the blood money. So the Roman numeral is just an artistic way of approaching the name of it, or the spelling of it anyway.
I've heard you say that honeybees will change their brain chemistry before taking up a new gig. So I'm wondering, do you think humans go through a similar thing? Like, can you identify with that process at all?
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I could so make that connection. There's something I will never lose, that anticipation and excitement. And I don't think it's just out of thought, but there must be some sort of physiological explanation. What happens? Adrenaline, serotonin, all these emotions and chemicals fire at the same time, prepare you for a gig, transform you before you get on stage. I can totally agree with that.
It's very poetic, man. Really appreciate you breaking down the name. One of the most important aspects as well when it comes to the origins, of the collective. I feel like someone who's played a really important role as well is Yolandi. How did you guys actually meet? How did you link up? Shout out to Yolandi for communicating and just making this even possible. So how did you guys actually link up with Yolandi?
Yolandi, I met a few years ago, actually just before she joined her partner in a business called My Music Management. She came to Lush, which is that festival out in Clarence. And I mean, we as in Warnerwood, yeah, we gigged there, we met her there. And then months later, Priska from My Music Management, she told me about that she's going to be partnered up with Yolandi and that she'll be really cool and she'll look after, while Mariska looks after the Prime Circle, Yolandi would be looking after. So she was basically thrown in as our sort of personal manager. And I think it was a sort of a first for her in that sense. She had been doing sort of merch, selling merch at shows and stuff like that, but to go in on sort of managerial, administrative, booking and merch and everything else, she was kind of thrown into the deep end. And she's grown so beautifully that she eventually left My Music Management and started her own company, Praise the Loud. So yeah, I've met her through Vorderboom, her dealing with us with Vorderboom, and we just connected straight away. Great work ethic, great enthusiasm, passion. She's doing it for the right reasons. Her heart's in the right place. She learns from experiences. She's a real go-getter. She believes in us more than us sometimes. She's kind of like the manager that I've always wanted to have. Prior to meeting her, I was managing for 10 years or so I really appreciate all the hard work that goes into it. And to deal with somebody like Yolandi, who's just a bundle of sunshine, and she just makes shit happen. And now she's representing Vornerbloem, Blvd Hvnny, Dean's El Cantante, Mark Rocka and the Six Shop, Springbok Meat Girls, Art Matthews, Burn the Mountain, The Narrow. I think she's got quite a kick-ass roster.
You know, a common thread here is just, obviously when I was communicating with Yolandi, you know, she's just a really chilled, like, it's just, I'm really blown away by how, you know, as you mentioned, you know, her record and the artists that she works with and such. And obviously, both you and Ryan, you know, being, you know, such, you know, seasoned musicians as well. What blows my mind is just how, like, chilled you guys are. Because I was just telling Meagan, like, you would expect that people, you know, that have achieved, you know, the things that you guys have achieved, you know, as a collective and as individual artists, you literally expect those people to just, you know, have this sort of, I don't know, this sort of like superiority thing going on. But you guys are like super chilled. What would you guys say actually grounds you and enables you to sort of not let, you know, all the hype and everything sort of, you know, maybe take away from, you know, who you guys are as just human beings first and foremost?
Well, first of all, I heard that song by Kendrick Lamar saying "Sit down, be humble." So you know, once you've heard that, you kind of know. No, I'm just joking, man. I think you see that was part of the problem that I was saying earlier, is that I think people feel like really entitled about something, and I think, you know, especially like I teach music, so there's a lot of people that can do it, and a lot of people that can do it amazingly, and it's all different because we're all different, you know. So I think it's just one of those things. You know, also my mom would slap me across the face, so but shout out. Yeah, look, I think it just comes down to, you know, it's about being in the right crowd with the right people. We all just love music, I think, and enjoy it, and it's fun, and it's never a mission to play or practice or that kind of thing. It's kind of just a lifestyle that we want to do, you know. So there's no point to being cocky or full of it about it. It should just be fun and cool, especially to collaborate and jam with a bunch of peeps. Yeah.
Nice one, brother. Well said. Cito?
Yeah, I see my relationship with music is deep, and I've had it for so long that it's become this other entity in my life that just basically kept me humble, you know, because it's almost like an elusive kind of thing, but when you get it, nothing compares to it. And, you know, that's got fuck all to do with you and your ego, you know. When ego gets in the way, that's when things sort of die, and when you should stop doing it, you know. Whenever you think it's you that is sort of creating in isolation, then I suppose then you start to get arrogant or whatever. I don't know. I've never had that experience. Maybe I haven't had that major worldwide success, so it's kind of kept me humble in that sense. But I also am so drawn to it that it's not about. It definitely isn't about ego. It's like it's about acknowledging that we are all blessed to be partaking in it in any shape or form, and collaboration with the right people also plays a big role. Keep each other humble, because you know that as soon as you get confident or overconfident, then you could drop the ball so easily. I've seen the coolest band become hated band. Yeah, I don't know. I suppose it's all about relationships too, and relationships keep you balanced, keep you intrigued and desiring to play and to perform and to create and to record and to write, but also keep you modest and keep you humble.
We see it all the time, when some artists, you'll find that they may get overconfident and such, and as you said, they may end up dropping the ball and such. I'm just super stoked that it isn't the case with you guys. Like, I've thoroughly enjoyed having this chat. Part of the reason why I'm also grateful with all the insights and such, and also to what Ryan was saying earlier as well in his answer. Shout out to Kendrick Lamar. If you're listening to this by some chance, be humble.
Damn straight.
I'll tell him to.
When you see him later, bro.
Yeah, please, bro. Just pass it on to K Dot. Yeah, guys. Obviously, it's just been a really amazing episode with all of you guys. I've personally learned a lot about you guys, and it's been such a privilege, even just having you guys, talking about your guys' experience when it comes to Blvd Hvnny. So yeah. Just looking at the listeners as well, in terms of where they might want to reach out to you guys or something, after listening to this episode. What are you guys' social media handles, and where can they sort of reach out to you if they want to maybe work or send you merch or just send some love in general?
So we're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, TikTok as well, and it's all Blvd Hvnny. Pretty simple, pretty easy to find.
Hey, that is really great. Thank you guys once again for doing this. You guys have no idea how much it means to us. To anyone listening to this, thank you for tuning into this episode. Learning about Blvd Hvnny has been amazing. Tune into all our stuff on our website, www.sludgingaround.com. Until next time, it is bye for now.
Lest we forget the man-made disasters by the bastards on the hill. sinners fall.